Hi there, welcome to That Pedal Show. Simon here, Mick and Dan, nowhere to be seen. I'm afraid we're all still in lockdown, social distancing. Mick and Dan have both been filming some stuff from home, as you will have seen. And, you know, we were lucky enough to film a lot of stuff before the lockdown happened, so we've managed to keep going for a few weeks. But we're now, you know, scraping the barrel down to me and talking a bit about the video process. I produced That Pedal Show. I'm behind the camera and I cut it all together. And help with content with Mick and Dan, so I thought it might be interesting to some of you guys to see a bit of that process. Although, as is traditional for us at least, when we do it behind the scenes, you know, things are probably about to change. Mick might be changing audio platforms. My A camera, which we shoot as the wide shot on the pedal show, will probably change in the next few weeks, pending us getting back to normality at some point soon. So it will all change, but you know, this is kind of how the show comes together, at least on my side. Mick's done bits and pieces of audio before, along with Fraser, but yeah, this is the video side. I'm doing the last show that we've got left in the can. We were lucky enough to get a load of stuff shot before the lockdown, so we've managed to go for about 5 weeks, I think, now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some screen records and I'll stick a camera over my shoulder and kind of walk you through what happens in the edit process. Not in real time. I usually aim for about a 4.5 hour turnaround on an hour show, Friday show. Yes, it would be great to spend more time doing that, more time doing graphics, kind of finessing it, but really, you know, we're all busy doing other stuff. I am a freelance cameraman and editor when I'm not doing That Pedal Show, and you know, we've got a lot of content to get through. So my aim is for it to be as streamlined as possible, both when we shoot it and when it comes to editing it, but maintaining a reasonable standard of quality so that, you know, it looks and sounds as good as we can possibly do.
Mick here. Hello. No Dan, obviously. He's self-isolating, social distancing in Swindon where he lives, which is a long way from here. I promise I'm not going to talk too much in this video because this is Simon's gig, but I will just say, probably make Simon blush. He has become an invaluable part of the TPS team. He just brought a skill set, a level of working efficiency and professionalism which we simply didn't have before. Simon is a professional. He's out there filming, editing, doing all that stuff at a really high level, and we're very grateful and lucky that he has the time to work for TPS as well, which he does, I think, because he's a massive guitar nerd, and I think it keeps him happy. So like I said, I promise I'm not going to talk too much. What I am going to do is just put some context on some of the stuff that Simon is talking about. So when he talks about cameras and stuff, I'm going to show you them and what we see. The first thing I'm going to show you is, here you go, this is what you normally see on TPS, give or take. You're using a slightly different camera and a different lens, but give or take, that's what you see. The next thing you're going to see, I'm going to take that camera, the one I'm pointing at, I'm going to put it on that high watt and I'm going to face it back down the room so you can see what Dan and I see, which will help put some context on everything that Simon's talking about. When Dan and I look back down the room, this is what you see. Here's the main key light up here. Hello, there I am. There's the fill light up there, and I'll show you what's on the ceiling in a minute. And the audio workstation, which is there, and I'll show you that in close-up in a sec. What you saw from back there was sort of production corner. Simon mentioned that we have monitors. One is the pedal cam monitor, so we can see what's happening on pedal cam. These two tripod legs that you can see there are the tripod that's filming us. And here's the audio workstation. So we added Fraser to the team just recently. Fraser was also a professional working in pro audio and stuff. And again, he's brought a skill set and a bunch of efficiency knowledge that we just didn't have before. Unfortunately, he can't be here to present this because he is socially isolating as well. But you met him in Dan's writing a song vlog, so hopefully we'll see more of Fraser over coming months. Everything gets recorded onto the Mac. As you can see, we use, as Simon said, Universal Audio Apollo 8P interfaces and all UAD plugins. We're currently using Logic. Simon mentioned that we might switch to Luna. We might, except it doesn't run very well on whatever OS this Mac has, which I think is High Sierra. UA started by saying that it doesn't work in High Sierra, and a few people have found that it kind of does, so we're not entirely sure yet. Failing that, it's new Mac time because that one can't run anything newer than High Sierra. So there we go. Main Logic screen, as you can see, recording my voice. And then in addition to that, we would have Dan's voice, 2 guitar amps and 2 room mics. the UAD console on that screen up there, so we can see everything that's running there, like a mixer, and pedal board monitor in production corner.
We record through Universal Apollo interfaces into Logic. It's all mixed there with Universal Audio plugins. And essentially what I get are stereo stems of the vocal mics. Usually we have two vocal mics, one above Mick, one above Dan. And then I get a stereo track, which is just guitars. Obviously we're setting to very different gain levels. So a big part of the edit is to cut between vocal level and guitar level, as well as the three cameras. So in terms of cameras, we've got three cameras on the show. We have overhead pedal cam, which is a Blackmagic production studio 4K, something like that. It's kind of small, records to SSDs, which we just leave rigged up in the room. Then we have a Sony FS7, which is what I'm filming on now, which is my regular camera as the wide shot. That is a bit overkill for the way we need a camera to work there, but it's my regular go-to camera for all my other stuff. Currently, as I said before, probably am actually about to change that. So it's a good staple workhorse for us for that pedal show, and for anyone else in video production, you'll all know that camera. The B camera is an FS5, which I'm usually stood by during the show, so the wide shots are locked off, it's always the same. And with the FS5, I just follow whatever's happening in the show to give us something to cut to.
Simon's talking about three cameras, right? Here's the B cam. This is the camera that's looking at me or Dan, and Simon will be stood here, very professionally, doing this with it. The main camera sits on here, which is where I've just taken it off there. And pedal cam is here, pointing down at the pedal board, which I will show you now. See how good my handheld focusing is then. There's pedal cam on the ceiling. That looks down pedal board. Everyone needs a Marshall just out of shot there, which is what is next to my guitar rack. The back wall, which you know all about. And Dan's guitar rack.
So I've got 3 video files for each show, one from each camera. So job number 1 is to sync all that together. So let's have a look. Okay, here we are in an alternate setup, a bit more side on. As you'll be able to see, normally I have a couple of monitors running, screen capturing a lot of monitors, and you being able to see all of that easily is a bit tricky. So I haven't bothered doing one of my screens. We'll just focus on the timelines and kind of see what's going on there. The other one's mainly just bins and scopes and meters and timecode and stuff like that, which probably isn't as interesting. So I've got the 3 video files that I talked about earlier, and the 2 audio files from Mick and Fraser. So first job is to bring all of that in and sync those 3 together. Here is our wide shot, as you can see in this monitor up here. So I can drag that down onto the timeline. I've got some audio down here that I can use for syncing. That's just the shotgun mic that's on the camera. We only use that, for scratch audio, just so that I can sync it to the better audio that's going through the Apollos. I'll get rid of a few tracks of that just so that I've got one that I can see. And then we'll get the FS5 shot, bring that in too. You'll be able to see, starts to be a bit of similarities between the 2 here. Again, I'll just get rid of a couple of tracks I don't really need at the moment. Make that a bit bigger. And then move it off it. That wasn't very clever. There we go. So we can start to get these 2 in sync. As we zoom in on, I'm just looking for a spike. There are loads of automated ways of doing syncs. Obviously, you can do sync claps and all that sort of stuff. But generally, it doesn't take too long to get it in-ish. I mean, we're not time coding these cameras, which is what you do in a sort of TV multi-camera sense. So they're not bang on, they're not running to the same time code. No master clock here. But as long as it's within a frame, then that's fine by me. It's close enough for YouTube. Then we're going to get the final overhead camera, which should be this one. Yes. As you can see, the colours look quite a lot different on this shot than the colour we have here in the main program monitor. Because we shoot Sony cameras, we shoot S-log. That's not necessarily a given. I mean, the FS7 is a 10-bit camera. It handles S-log well. That's what it's designed to do. For those of you that know, I'll backtrack a little bit. S-log is a kind of a way of getting more dynamic range out of the camera. In this situation, we've got really fixed variables in terms of the amount of light and dark that we need to capture. But my workflow with S-log is pretty good, and I think the camera performs best color-wise when it's shot in S-log. So we kind of shoot S-log just by habit and just to try and get the best color we can out of Sony cameras, which will start a whole forum of discussion below. But the FS5 and 7 are both shooting 4K S-log 3. The Blackmagic doesn't shoot S-log. It can shoot a film look, which is a flatter profile in the same vein. Meaning afterwards, when you've got it into your editor or your colouring platform, you can pull the contrast and saturation back to normal. We've actually found that the video look in the Blackmagic isn't a million miles away from where we want the S-log footage to look when we've put the grade on things. So just for the sake of ease, we leave that one in video. It also means in the room we have a monitor connected to that pedal cam, and it means we can just see what's going on while we're filming a bit easier if it's not all grayed out, like you can see on this side on the bass guitar. I fixed all that stuff at the end because I want the computer to be working as little as possible while I'm editing, so that it's as snappy and responsive as I need it to be while I'm cutting. Then at the end we can just dump all the grades on and check it looks okay. So we've got those two video files in at the moment. I'll now drag down the Blackmagic. Again, with the scratch audio, we can start to see how everything lines up. You can also tell if I look at this spike here that I usually hit record on the overhead camera before I walk back to the other one. So it's always running a bit earlier than the others. So we just bring it again. We're looking for within a frame. And that would be my frame that they all make that noise in. That is probably the horn. It's always quite useful. So that's our 3 sets of video. Now I just need to find the audio. Normally I grab the audio from Mick or Fraser at the studio, but given our lockdown, we're doing a lot of stuff online. Downside to being in the countryside is my internet connection is awful. But Fraser's sent me the audio for this one, so I'm just transferring this across to my edit machine. For those that are interested, I do cut on a PC. I consider myself a Mac person, but a few years ago when I needed to upgrade my main editing machine, a kind of really powerful Mac that could do Premiere well wasn't really in existence. And to be honest, it wasn't really a powerful Mac. There was a lot of expensive Macs that claimed to be doing a lot but weren't doing a lot. So a lot of people like me were kind of forced to go into the PC route really, unless you wanted to cut in Final Cut. And for me, my background's in pretty traditional film production, so it's really Resolve or Premiere for me. And Premiere is Premiere is the thing I'm quickest at. And that's the important thing to me. So I had to do the PC thing, which was, pretty painful for me to hit the go button on a box that didn't say Mac. But, once you're into the software, it does all largely run the same. And for Premiere, it is the quickest option. Even now with the Mac Pro and the iMac Pro and things, Adobe and Nvidia and AMD and Apple, they're not all sat at the same table. So for me, I'm still PC for a little while. Maybe that will change. Maybe I'll change to Resolve. I do quite like Resolve, although it seems to crash a lot. The other thing people may be interested in is kind of resolutions and why we shoot 4K. I mean, a lot of YouTube stuff is HD and just scaled up to 4K. Obviously, YouTube as a platform supports 4K. We decided to go 4K, shoot 4K, upload 4K, just to try and deliver the best thing we could, really. And, a lot of people, including me, have 4K smart TVs. So if your connection can handle it, it's actually one of the things that probably people consume the most 4K on is YouTube through a smart TV. Yes, it doesn't make any difference on your phone, really. Hopefully you're not watching that pedal show on your phone because, we do put a lot of effort into the sound and the look and hopefully, put some headphones on at least. But shooting 4K, yes, it's a pain, takes a long time to transfer files, means a lot of storage, takes a long time to encode. But, I think it's worth having the best resolution we can do. Will we go up to 6K, 8K? Probably we won't. But for what we need, 4K is more than enough. And on a nice smart TV at home, it should hopefully look good your end too. Okay, so audio is copied over finally. So I've got 2 audio files, as I said. On the screen you can't see. If I bring them over onto our timeline, I've got one for voices and one for guitars. So I can make some of these a bit smaller now because I know those 3 are in sync already. And let's have a little look at the voices because that's kind of the busiest thing that I can see. So it gives me lots of stuff to sync from. Let's see if I can find that little horn blip or whatever it was before. grab those 2 files, get them so that they're in. Fun quirk of Adobe sometimes. You zoom all the way in and the waveform disappears. It's kind of helpful. I think it's something to do with them making the generating the waveform. And just check we're all in. So we're in on a frame. The start of that is all within 1 frame. So again, you know, yes, it's not sample accurate. It's not like it would be if it was a time-coded camera, but it's within a frame, and that's perfectly good enough for what we need. So then the process is I just need to clip these all up so that they're all in sync. Packages like Adobe have got loads of different ways of doing this. Some are better than others. Every program I've ever used has its bugs. The funny thing with Adobe sometimes is the audio. So what I do is just make a nested file for each camera. So we've got Deer Heavy, without an extra E, Cam A. And then the same for that one, Cam B, and the same for that one, Cam C. So now these 3 green things are our 3 cameras that all start and end at the same time, and they're all in sync. So on the screen you can't see over here, I just make those 3 a little multi-camera sequence, give it a name that just says multi-camera. And now if I make a sequence from that guy, I get a multi-camera clip. I can stick our in-sync audio in off of here. I will speed some of this up. I won't shoot the whole thing in 4 hours real time, but gives you a little sense of the process. And we're good to go. So now we've got our kind of 2 main audio sources, which I can cut between. And we've got an in-sync multi-camera clip of the 3 cameras that I can cut between. You can bring up a display like a kind of multi-camera thing, where you can see all the cameras at once and see your playout monitor. I most of the time don't really need to see the others, and the performance of the PC is better if I'm not on multi-camera, so I tend to not bother. I use the shortcuts on the numeric pad for cameras 1, 2 and 3, and I can just do it manually. So basically I go through the show in 2 passes. The first one is to just get the content together. So I'll go through the whole show, I'll hit play, cut between the audio roughly, cut between the 3 cameras, tidy up any stuff that we decide to redo, or if the order of things doesn't quite pan out as we thought it would in the studio, I might move some things around or get rid of stuff. Then that gives me a good idea of how long the show is going to be. Then the second pass really is a sort of tidy up. So I'll put all the fades in, and crucially put all the masking and titling in whenever we're on pedal camera, which obviously can take quite a while. But it does mean it's just clear on YouTube as to what's on at any given one time. We're probably kind of at the end of the day today, a bit of faffing this afternoon and sorting out endless Zoom calls I'm sure that everyone else is having with their clients. So I'm going to start this in the morning rather than start it now, as I should go back and sort of see my family. So there'll be some sort of magic outfit change now. Okay, slight outfit change, a bit of light camera change stuff as well. I had to do some filming in here last night for a friend of mine, and so I had to move stuff around. It's raining today, and you know I'm essentially in a wooden box in a field, so you can hear the rain quite a lot. I tried to get the mic a bit closer. We'll see how annoying it is. So here we are. This is where we left off yesterday. I've got a multi-camera sequence of our 3 cameras, and I've got 2 tracks of audio. One is our vocals and one is our guitars, which I need to cut between as we go. What I'm looking for is basically our first block of guitar playing, which looks to be about here. There's a few starts and stops here, so maybe we were still setting up and we rolled a bit early. So let me just check after this block whether this is our in or not. We should be able to hear something.
Had to put that in the end there.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Rabia here.
Cool, so that is our start. So we obviously were still setting up at the front.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe come in just before that block. So we've got a nice clean bit of playing at the top. And we're in, so we get rid of all of that. And then basically whenever we're hearing guitars, I don't want to hear the vocal mics because, I'll just undo that, if I solo that track, the vocals it's very distorted because the gain level on those preamps are set for our voices, not for the loud amp. B, you hear all the strum of the guitar. I mean, you know, it's miles away from the amp. We don't want to hear that at all. Our guitar track is, if we've got more than one amp, it'll be multiple amps together with a bit of our room mics, which are at the back. Those who haven't seen Mick's behind the scenes audio show, it's we use a kind of middle side pair of AKG 414s up at the back, just to give it a little sense of space, really. So that same bit sounds like this properly. Which is a bit more like it. So we're moving all of that audio to about there. We'll go from the top. And then, as I said, the way I have my multi-camera set up is that it's on my numeric pad on the keyboard, 1, 2, 3, cameras 1, 2, 3. It becomes a bit of a muscle memory thing then for me, that I know which camera's where. A bit like drummers, no two editors will really work the same way. And actually, a bit like drummers, you know, editing really is just about having a nice, smooth, unnoticeable flow most of the time. If you're not trying to go for a certain style or effect or feeling in a drama sense, this obviously isn't that. Having them on a key just means that I can hit exactly when I want to make the change, which I'm just trying to make it feel as smooth as possible, so that, you know, the show doesn't feel like you're lingering on anything for too long, and hopefully just continues to feel engaging, because, you know, it's a long format show, and the style of the show, you know, lots of stuff on YouTube is just hard cut, a bit like I'm doing with this. It's just hard cuts on content, which works for short stuff and keeps it really snappy and engaging. The format of this show, what really works about pedal shows, about Mick and Dan chatting. You guys all know that, I know that. So I intentionally leave it a bit longer format and, you know, let the tangents happen, let them chat, because that's the stuff that's actually really interesting and really what the show's based on. So I try not to cut much out at all, really. You know, it's about just having a natural flow between 3 cameras, and really what you see as the show is what we film. You know, unless something goes wrong or we've just ended up with like an hour and a half's worth of stuff, then I'll chop half an hour out. But really, 90% of the time, what you see is just what is filmed on the day, just with the camera cuts. So let's jump back in. So I'm going to go from the top, and I'm literally, when I hit 1, it stays on camera 1. When I hit 2, it jumps to camera 2, which in this case is on Rabir's guitar, ready for the intro. And camera 3 is our board. Sometimes, probably I will in this case, I'll scale in the board a little bit. So, for example, we've got a fixed lens on that camera, which, you know, is slightly wider than we need it most of the time, but it means we don't get any lens creep or anything because it's hanging vertically down from the ceiling. But what it does mean is sometimes when we just need that board in shot and we don't need to see the bits around the edge, it's a really sharp camera, that Blackmagic camera. And actually you get away with quite a lot of scaling in. So what I'll do is just push that in a bit so that you guys can kind of see the settings on the pedals a little bit more. We can't always get away with doing that because, you know, sometimes you need to see something that's around the edges. But, you know, it is all in 4K. And as I said, that camera is really sharp. So, you know, normally as a rule, you don't want to go more than 20% on a push in because it's going to get really quite soft. But what's that? 122.2, so only just over. But it's amazing how that Blackmagic stays sharp. So we can go with that. Then everyone watching this show gets a good view of all the settings on the pedals, which is always a bit of a trick. So let's go from the top. We want to be on camera 1 for our intro. Bearing in mind there's going to be some graphics, we'll stick all that on at the end. So, for example, there, you know, it's always good to see reactions from Mick and Dan to the little kind of 16th picking thing. So, as you can see on our timeline now, we've got, it says MC1, multi-camera 1, 2, 3, and back to 1. I try and show the board in the intro, just so everyone gets a quick sense of what's featured in this show. As we go through the show, I mask it all so that you can see exactly what's on at any given time. But just to set things off, you see the whole board. And then we're back to camera A, ready for the start. Now, when I do the second pass, as you'll see here, we suddenly cut back to our vocal mics, and you can see the background noise level there. So when you start, you suddenly hear the noise hit. On pass 2 is when I'll really tidy all that stuff up. So I'm not too worried at this stage that happens, because I'll fix that on the second round through. This one's all about just making the camera smooth and making sure the right audio is playing at any given time. So I'm just roughly cutting that for now. And as best I can, I'll just try and let this play in real time.
Had to put that in the end there.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Rabia here. What am I supposed to say?
Hello.
Be here. Hello.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
There we are. We went wrong. So this will be time where we actually make a little amend. Pour a beer, missed his line. Let's find where we need to be.
Hey guys, welcome.
So there we are. You can see on our waveform.
Hey guys, welcome.
We've got Dan saying hey. So we'll make a cut there. Work out where we want to come in on that. So there's his hey. The question is whether we can leave the laughing, because it's nice, but it's on that camera. Who have we got laughing?
Had to skip it.
So what I'll probably do, because we've got the wide shot and I don't want to do a hard cut on wide shots if I can help it, I do try and make it feel like it's just one smooth thing. So probably on the end of the playing, I'll just stay on the bass guitar for a bit to allow the cut. So we've got a nice bit there. I'll trim that audio back because that wants to be my edit point. I'll grab those clips in between, get rid of them. And then I'll probably give myself a bit of a lead into that.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show.
And there we are, we've kind of covered the little mistake. It's not perfect because, you know, Rabia's not holding the guitar and he is just on the previous shot, but it's, you know, it's quick enough that it's fine.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Rabia here. Hello.
Yes! So, it's been years. It's been since, actually, yes.
Give yourself a honk.
So from here on in, it's just me doing cuts really between cameras 1 and 2 while the conversation plays out. So what I'll probably do is kind of, until we get to the next bit of playing over here, I'll just speed this bit up so you get a sense of the amount of cuts that are going on. But really, it's literally just me hitting 1 and 2 on the keyboard while we play in real time.
We'll be over. We've done a board build with him.
Okay, so we made it to the first bit of playing. We're just getting to the board. B's just about to play the amp sound by itself. So I'm really at the board just to see that Dan's switched the amp on. And as you see, we've got the two waveforms on vocal and guitar. And as before, we just want to make sure that the vocal side we don't hear. So we're swapping over to the guitar level of gain. Similarly, there's another block there. We've got to sort of make a call on this tail here at the end. Really, that's probably a pass 2 thing. Sometimes I come back during the tail. Obviously, especially if you've got a lot of reverb on, it can be really hard to come back to the vocals because the tail of the reverb is still so loud. I always try and get them to leave a good gap, but you know, it's really hard to not just start speaking, especially when you're really into the sound. So the tails thing is always a bit of a tricky one, and you just have to do it edit by edit, really. But let's see what we can hear. So we've seen the switch. We can go back to camera A because we don't have any pedals on. We don't need to see what's going on yet.
So that's already pretty broken up, crunchy, and out of tune.
There we are. Our guitar out of tune.
Yeah, it's already.
I'll probably leave that in, to be honest. I'll just put a sort of hard cut there because you know that there's some content gone just while he tunes up. No one wants to say they're watching him tune. So we'll find the bit where he comes out.
Yeah, it's already.
So back there. We'll move that bit out. And when I usually do a hard cut for this show, I'll just stick in a little flip just so you sort of know something's happened and it's not pretending to be in real time. So I stick a little black background flip so it just spins over and we're back to where we need to be. So what I'm going to do is, you get the idea. We've got the whole show to go through here. It's an hour and 5 minutes on this timeline. I literally go through the whole sequence top to tail doing exactly what we're doing. Any little moments that need to just be snipped out, I will, but generally I try and keep it all running. We're cutting between the 3 cameras, cutting between the 2 audio, and I'll probably just time lapse this next probably hour and a half, 2 hours at worst, hopefully an hour and a half, to just get this camera pass done. Obviously, it's slower than real time and we were rolling for an hour, so depends how complicated the edits need to get as we go along. But here it is time lapsed. A quick aside I will mention in terms of editing platforms, people will have their preferences and their workflows. As I said before, Premiere Pro is mine. One of the reasons for that is just how snappy it is. I really like Resolve, but it just doesn't keep up with the keyboard shortcuts and where I need to be. That could be a system thing. Final Cut Pro on a big Mac Pro these days is probably pretty snappy. But edits are all about timing, and as soon as there's a tiny lag like that, it's the difference between playing an electric kit and playing an acoustic kit, or playing a Kemper and playing a real tube amp. Contentious point there probably for you guys. But what it does allow me to do is know that when I've hit keys, it happens near enough straight away. Obviously, there's always some latency. What it also allows me to do is make edits ahead of time while playback's happening. So I'm watching where the timeline marker is, I'm watching the content, but I can look ahead and start cutting the guitar parts out of the vocal mics. So in terms of being as efficient as possible, which is what this process needs to be, it does allow me to kind of be checking playback and making cuts ahead of time, albeit roughly, which just means I can be as efficient as possible. Okay, so there we are. What did that take? Hour 20. Well, I did have a phone call for 20 minutes with the client, so that basically took an hour. So just pretty much real time. Some bits I can skip forward, some bits I can just play at a higher speed so that I can get through it. But that is on our timeline there, our rough cut running to 1 hour, 1 minute of the Heavy Tones show with Rabir. So you can see the kind of on audio 1 layer here, these gaps, that's every time we go into the guitar track. And then on our single video layer, you can see where I'm cutting between all the cameras. So really, my video 1 layer now doesn't really change, that's our camera cuts. So all I need to do is start going through and smoothing stuff. So I've got a default transition set up on this machine to just give me a single frame audio transition. So I just grab all the audio and put that across. So I've got no audio cuts without a fade. I'll probably move where those audio cuts happen, but they've all got a fade on ready for that. So if we zoom in on anything, you see these have all got a single frame in and out. Oh, Siri thought I was talking to her. Go away. As I was saying before, we shoot the show in S-log 3, which is a kind of maximum dynamic range style of shooting, which is why it all looks kind of grey and unsaturated. So you could manually just go in and pull all that back out. Most manufacturers like Sony or Canon or Blackmagic or Panasonic, whoever, have their own lookup tables, they're called, which help bring that contrast and saturation back to normal. I use one that is based on the S-log 3 from the manufacturer, but actually it's a kind of nod more towards a Venice colour, which is a Sony full frame cinema camera. Anyone shooting in S-log 2 or 3, have a look at xdcamuser.net maybe. A guy called Alistair Chapman, he's kind of the guru of all things Sony, came up with some really great lookup tables that generally help with the skin tone with Sony cameras, which can always be a bit of a tricky issue. So there's some great LUTs on there, of which this is based on, albeit with a couple of tweaks to just try and work in that room a bit better. But yeah, go and have a look at that. So this is going to happen partly on the screen you can't see, but I'm going to drop on the grade that I have for our main camera, and there you can see it pulls all that kind of back to normal. If I bring that over here, I can turn that on and off. And you get the idea of what that's doing. So it's bringing all our contrast back. I've got some scopes on the other screen as well that help kind of confirm all of that. I can go to our B camera and do the same thing. So now when we get to a B shot there, you'll see that that's also happened on Beer's guitar. Switch that on and off, give you the same idea. And then lastly, for the pedal cam, which is here, as you can see, there's loads more contrast and saturation on that already. As I was saying before, we don't actually shoot that in log just because the Blackmagic camera looks pretty good in video mode straight away. So all I really need to do is add a bit of contrast and saturation to that. There it is. So it's literally just going from that to that, just so that the contrast matches when we go from the shot of the board in the room back to the shot of the three of them. So that's our grade put on those three angles. Different platforms do that in a different way. You can put it on each clip on the timeline. The problem being, if you do want to tweak it, you've obviously got to repeat that all through the timeline. So the way Premiere works, the way I work in Premiere is to put the grade on the what's called the master clip. So you put it on in the bin, and then wherever that clip is used in the edit sequence, the color's there. Benefit being that if you need to make a tweak, you can just change the master clip grade and it ripples through everywhere that it appears. Okay, so now that all the grades are on, I'll basically play through the show again, start to finish, tweak any points at which the audio is going between the two, just to make them as tidy as I can possibly get them. But the main job is to mask and title all the pedals. So I'll just jump to a little bit of that just so you can see that, and again probably just time lapse through because it's another couple of hours of work probably. So what I'll do is look for the first bit of playing. I know that bit of playing, we don't put any pedals on, that's just listening to the amps. So this is the first time, here we are, we've got a light on G2, that means we're using a loop. It's in Stompbox mode, so I know it's the Riverside because that's got the light next to it. So all I do, again, there's a load of different ways to do this. This is my workflow. It means that all my masks can sit on a video layer. But I put some black in at 90% opacity, so that's what greys everything off. I can take that on and off. Then I copy the pedal cam shot above the black. I find the point at which the pedal gets switched on. In fact, there's a bit of an audio tidy to do there. Step through, there it is, there's our frame. So I start that where that shot is, which is there. So it's black before it, it switches on. Then in this video layer, that's where I need to cut out the pedal that we're talking about. So in this case, it's the Riverside. I zoom in my frame a bit so that I can see the pedal. It's pretty laborious, but it is the neatest way to do it. And I draw around the pedal. This one's pretty easy because it's pretty square. There's always some curvy bits. Back to the start. That gives us a mask that just shows that video layer over that pedal. So the rest of it, I'm seeing the black and then seeing the pedal cam, the remainder of the pedal cam beneath it. So that we see the pedal we're using nice and clearly. And as Dan switches it on, we see it light up. That's all we need to do. What I also do the first time we see any given pedal is stick a title on there. So I stick some text on here. I have a preset that is the font that we use on Pedal Show, and I will type in the name of the pedal, Strymon Riverside. That name will reappear if we change something about the routing of it, just to make it clear, but otherwise I'll just name it so that as you watch it, you know the brand and exactly the pedal we're talking about.
Two, Riverside. Oh, sorry, here you go.
So I'll show you as we go on. If we're stacking pedals and there's multiple pedals on, all I have to do is go into that video clip above black and keep adding to this list of masks here, which makes it easy to copy and paste those on different clips as we go. And essentially from here on in, every time we see the pedal board, we probably have a mask on. So that's the main job, is just going through and cutting out. Obviously, once I've done one pedal, I can just copy that mask each time. I don't have to draw it for every time we do it. It's also where having a tablet and a pen can help slightly. I can't edit with a mouse. It's too slow for me. I've got used to this workflow So it just happens to be that it's also useful for doing masking. So essentially, I'll run another time lapse now while I kind of get through this, stop at anything else that seems interesting. But basically, we're doing the whole show again, tidying up all those audio points, checking the grade looks okay, just in case something happened to change. I mean, it does look a bit different when there's 3 instead of 2 because everyone's sat slightly differently to the lights. So any tweaks that happen along the way, I'm really just watching what is essentially now the final output of the show. And then at the end, I'll top and tail with the graphics, but we'll get there in a minute. So let's play it again. We're going to basically go through the whole thing top to tail, tidy up all the audio, and I'll see you on the other side.
You know it's all of me. It's plain to see.
Okay, so I just thought I'd show you. I've just got to the bit we did where I just showed you how I mask stuff. But we come quite quickly back onto the pedal board here. So all I need to do is grab my black, copy it over, copy my new clip, and then I'm copying the old one, but I don't want to copy that clip over here because other stuff's happening here. What Premiere allows you to do is copy the attributes, paste attributes. So I can just take that and I'll put the mask of the riverside on this section of the clip so that when they make any adjustments, well, they are in this bit, but when they do, you see the hand, you don't suddenly see a floating hand or whatever. So we just keep doing that all the way through.
Another evening it rolls around. Feels like we just got up. We're running faster, but we're running down. Still things are looking up. Hey! You know it's never enough. You know it's never enough. You know it's never enough. Oh, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. You know it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough.
Okay, so there we are. Finally got to the end. Didn't keep an eye on the clock, but maybe another couple of hours to do that hour show. I mean, we're almost on the money for an hour, 1 hour, 57 seconds. So if you have a look at our sync sequence, we were only 1:11 in terms of the actual time we were really rolling for. So we've only knocked 10 minutes off, which is probably just the top and tail as much as anything. We are pretty much running real time. Show's all done, it's all graded, all the masking's in, all the fades are in. All we need to do now is stick a bit of the branding on. We get the sting and we chuck that onto the front. Have a little look down here. Now these are the original stings that Mick made long before my tenure on Pedal Show, which means mainly we're in HD, which is why that green box is there. We could use alpha channels and things instead of the green, but Mick did green and it works fine. So all I do is just scale it up a little bit and find a key to stick on there. But green. And now we have a kind of alpha transparency under there. What I will also do is just get that on a different video layer. Audio layer, sorry. Get that on a different audio layer. Get our video underneath it so that as it reveals, we're in through a beer. It's all good. I mean, despite the fact we're on a 200% scale on that, it's sharp enough. I don't need to stick anything else on it, even scaling it from HD to 4K. Adobe seems to do that all right. So that's the top done, and I've got a little headphone sting, which I'll stick just on there. What I'm also going to stick on this episode, which isn't normal, is just a caveat when it was filmed. As I said at the top, we were lucky enough to get quite a lot of stuff shot before the lockdown happened. But we're 5 weeks in now and don't want to kind of freak people out that we're still filming during all of this. So I'm just going to put a caveat at the top saying filmed before social distancing requirements. just to make it clear, filmed before social distancing requirements. Always sound it out when you're spelling and your edit, because I get it wrong all the time. Right, that's there. The other thing I need to add is a little bug on the top. Actually, in this project, I've got one from the last show. So let me go here, grab the bug and put it on here. So this is the little logo that sits up in the top corner. As I said, I had it from another show, so I'll just copy that onto there. But I do have that on top of it. And then at the end, I will also grab this from the other show, as I was just there. I've got a little end audio and end video for the store. So chuck that down on another audio layer, chuck those above it so that the transition happens over the logo bug, and just check the timing.
All right, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye.
That'll do. That's it. There's our whole sequence. 1 hour, 1 minute, 12 seconds, 13 frames for this one. So now I can just hit export. We're making it 4K, YouTube. I know where that's going, and I just use that preset. So on my machine, it's usually about real time plus a half for an export. So probably about an hour and a half to get this show all rendered out, and it'll probably be about 18 gig, say, for an hour. That's what it reckons on this one. And on my internet connection, that would take weeks because it's pretty poor. So I need to go and hide it somewhere on the drive so that Mick can pick it up next time he's out doing a shop, and he can upload it from his house where it'll actually get there in time for Friday. Anyway, well, there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was a bit of a distraction for some of you, maybe learned something. It's always a bit of a moving target. Things do change. You know, it could be more efficient, I'm sure. Probably by the end of this year, we might change cameras. I've certainly got a couple of camera things on the horizon outside of Pedal Show, which will probably just kind of drip feed into what we do on that Pedal Show, and hopefully just look better and better. That's the aim. So maybe, you know, by the end of the year when things are back to normal, hopefully we can show you a bit of that. But for now, that's all from me. Don't usually do this, talking to camera, stand in a room by myself talking. Do my best to avoid it, but hopefully it's provided a bit of a distraction for you guys at home, and maybe you found it interesting, learned something. But for now, have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.